I hope Saipan will notice me this year. Hey, what's up ladies and gentlemen, wargamers and YouTubers? This is Boomer Shaka Boxer, and today we have a special episode of Kraken Unleashed. Earlier last week, the premium tier 7 United States Navy carrier, the Saipan, was publicly released, and as a huge fan of aircraft carriers, I knew I just had to purchase one. This ship has been the topic of hot debate on not necessarily its dominance, but rather its viability, i.e., can it stand up against a Hiryu or a Ranger? So hopefully through this gameplay of mine, I can shed some more light, especially if you are on the fence on whether you want to purchase this or not. So without further ado, let's start this episode of Notice Me Saipan, I mean Kraken Unleashed. So the first thing you should have noticed on the Saipan is its relatively small squadron size. The base fighter is a squadron of 3 and the base torpedo bomber is another squadron of 3. I have squadrons of 4 fighters only because I'm using my 15-point Ranger captain, which has the skill Air Superiority. Couple that with your smaller hangar capacity relative to the Ranger and Hiryu, and each airplane you lose will become more impactful in terms of your long-term sustainability. This is not a carrier you can play a war of attrition with.
Group 5, we are under attack.
However, what the Saipan lacks in quantity, it makes up in quality. And arguably, the most important quality that will either make or break you in the Saipan is in whether or not you can realize its speed differential potential.
Instructions.
So early on, I sent my squadrons to the northeast corner to scout and pick up good information. This is a 20-minute game and there's no need to rush a drop on the Aoba. I've already forced a defensive fire and for now, that's good enough. Additionally, I picked up intel on where the carrier is as well as where his initial groups are, so I start to reposition my squadrons accordingly. I initiate a dogfight with my left squadron to see how well they can do, and I try to strafe his bombers with my right squadron. A beautiful sidestep by the Hiryu saves his bombers, but he makes a mistake by rallying his bombers closer to the aerial engagement. Pay attention to this high micro situation and notice how I'm able to continually avoid confrontation against his fighters, and unfortunately for him, also notice that my southerly fighters are just about finished with his former fighter squadron. Although he had a chance to strafe my northerly fighters, I'm one step ahead of him and capitalize on half his strike package. With my ammo supply low, my intentions here were to try to lock up his fighter with my single fighter and then try to strafe his bombers one more time with my other group before flying home. While we were focused on this fighter engagement, I was simultaneously making notes that their earlier spotted battleships were sailing west, and it's finally time for me to start my bombing run. The Congo is turning away from the torpedoes, which sets me up with the best possible engagement angle, which I capitalize on.
Group 5, returning to ship.
A decent hit. One of the best things you can do while you reload, and it doesn't matter what class you play, is to make reads on the situation. And this is a point I continually stress, even to myself. All 4 enemy battleships are heading west and look like they will start heading south soon. 1 destroyer out of the 3 have been spotted, meaning 2 more are in places where my planes have not flown over yet. Decent intel for the first scramble. One thing I didn't like though, was that our ships were awkwardly positioned, and eventually this will develop into a scramble situation for us. So in terms of the aerial combat, I now know that I'm engaging against a 2-2-2 Hiryu, and it appears that my fighters are able to outmatch his in dogfighting as well as speed. This is of course with a 4 fighter squadron.
Group 3, ready.
Our team picks up more intel and spots another DD on the west.
Group 5, ready for takeoff. Group 3, airborne. Group 4, maintaining present course.
And several seconds later, we finally spot the last enemy destroyer. With this, we should have a pretty good idea on where the engagements will take place. I split my fighters to try to provide spotting coverage against the two recently spotted destroyers, and send my torpedo bombers in the general direction of their battleships, essentially a low-risk situation.
Group 2, awaiting instructions. Group 3,
I spot one torpedo bomber group and try to chase him down.
standing by for instructions. Over.
However, I soon also spot the fighters. Although I could have easily disengaged, I wanted to try out a frontal strafe to see the results. Not exactly ideal, but I managed to down 2, leaving me with an advantage in this 4-on-4. Pay attention to how this Fuso maneuvered. Because he turned into the torpedoes momentarily before my first drop, he managed to dodge at least one of them.
Returning. Group 5, taking fire. Group 5, returning to ship.
Here is where my previous foresight was realized. We really had some weird positioning, and unfortunately for me, I also failed to compensate properly, giving the Aoba a sizable window of opportunity to have damaged me. The enemy Hiryu also smells blood and tries to capitalize on me. Unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on perspective, I managed to strafe one of his bomber squadrons, and my ship-based AA takes out his other squadron,
Ship is on fire.
turning what could have been a fatal encounter and marginalizing it into something I can hold out while waiting for my team to recover.
By for instructions. Over. Problem solved, sir. All forces requesting.
For reference, my surface detection range is 11.9, and the Aoba is clearly within that distance.
Group 2, returning. Group 3, ready for takeoff. Group 5, ready for takeoff.
One thing I would like to point out, however, is that at the time of this replay, I was using my Strike Ranger captain, who was specialized for AA.
Group 2,
Instead of the traditional aircraft captain skills and equipment that bolster the sustainability of the aircraft, I opted for basic fire training, advanced fire training, along with AA Guns Modification 2 equipment that will maximize my ship's anti-air capabilities.
Group 3, maintaining present course. Group 5, airborne. Group 3, awaiting instructions.
Another reload, another opportunity to assess the combat situation. The enemy carrier is still up northeast, so I'll send my fighters in that direction, and the enemy battleships are still coming in from the west, so that's where I'll send my bombers.
Group 4, we are under attack. Group 2, ready. Group 3, standing by for instructions. return. Group 5 taking fire. Group 4 returning. Group 5 returning to ship.
Enemy battleship destroyed.
One of the most important responsibilities as a carrier captain occurs when you are not in direct competition against another carrier captain, and that's spotting. Here I am once again putting in some effort to split my fighters to spot the 2 remaining enemy destroyers so as to minimize the risk my teammates are exposed to.
Standing by for instructions. Over.
A sunk ship cannot be replaced, but a destroyed aircraft? That's what hangar capacity is for.
Group 2 awaiting instructions. Group 3 taking fire. I owe you one. Group 2, we're under attack. Ready. Group 2.
A beautiful salvo from our Nagato, almost finishing off the enemy battleship.
Group 4 maintaining present course. Group 2 awaiting instructions. Group 5 ready for takeoff.
And as I swing back to look at my fighter, I notice the enemy squadrons are somewhat collinear, so I opted for another frontal strafe. And fortunately for me, the tail end of my strafe clips 2 of the enemy Hiryu's torpedo bombers, enough assistance to keep our New York in the fight a bit longer.
Group 2 taking fire. Group 2 returning to ship. Group 2 returning.
The Saipan is all about maximizing the amount of flights you can put out over the duration of a game. Per engagement, you do not field the same quality strike package as a Hiryu or a Ranger does, but your squadrons reload and fly faster, enabling you to compensate for that quality in quantity.
Group 5 returning.
Enemy cruiser foundered.
And even though a Hiryu and Ranger can field more fighters in the air relative to the Saipan, what you lack in quantity, you can make up in quality. This carrier strays far from the US combat doctrine in this game, and actually feels more like the classic IJM balanced carrier loadout.
Maintaining present course. Group 2, we're under attack.
I had originally thought that the Boyskavitsa was going to sail north through the gap and get out of trouble, but for whatever reason he decided to re-engage. So I readjusted my angle and then dropped, seemingly far enough for my torpedoes to activate.
Group 5 ready. Group 4 returning to ship.
As soon as I finished off the Boyskavitsa, I switched back to take a look at the New York and respot the Mahan, barely in time to get an early spot on the dropped torpedoes.
Roger, proceeding to assist you. Group 3
But it's seemingly enough to allow the New York to avoid impact. That's like Rush Hour in hand, cutting it real close.
Group 2, we're under attack.
But unfortunately here, because I missed a strafe and subsequently proceeded to dogfight, that put me in a situation where I did not have enough ammo in reserve to assist the New York.
Ready for takeoff.
This is a recurring theme when you play the Saipan, or any carrier in general. You have to have good decision making, followed by excellent execution.
Returning to ship. Group 3 returning.
What makes the Saipan a very interesting and unique US carrier, however, is its ability not only to put out damage, but also to mitigate damage. Those of you that play Japanese balanced loadouts should be very familiar with this concept. The Saipan epitomizes that playstyle and is quintessentially the carrier you want to play if you want to both deal damage against enemies and negate damage. Remember that Aoba we elected to not drop in the beginning of the match? Same situation here, and even though he has defensive fire activated, at this stage of the game you are more than capable of playing attrition at a better rate. With the proper early game risk management, I maintain my long-term sustainability.
Group 4, target destroyed.
The Aoba initially does an excellent job of making this drop as hard as possible, but overcompensates his turn and I nail him right in the center.
We've destroyed an enemy cruiser.
A well-placed strafe by the enemy carrier, but it's a little, too late.
Group 3, maintaining present course.
And as we approach the endgame in this replay, I would like to point out that the Saipan has arguably been the most micro-intensive CV I have ever played up to tier 7. Re-emphasizing what I said earlier, the better you are at putting yourself in situations where you can optimize the speed of your fighters and bombers, the more bang you'll get out of the Saipan.
Ready for takeoff. Group 3, standing by for instructions.
Another good bait by the enemy Hiryu. And I really like this because even though it looks like the game may be over, he still hasn't given up.
Taking fire. Group 2, returning. Our team has taken the lead. Group 3, target destroyed. Group 3, awaiting instructions. Group 3, target destroyed. Group 3, target destroyed. Group 3, returning to ship. Group 4, we are under attack. Group 4, returning.
Saipan noticed you. Kraken unleashed.
Blown up.
Good game, everyone.
With 1 minute to go, there's not much left anyone can do. So hopefully this demonstration provides a little bit more insight into how effective the Saipan can be when played adequately.
Group 3, standing by for instructions. Good game, everyone. 5, airborne. Group 2, ready.
If you have any questions, feel free to ask. And if you enjoyed this kind of content, leave a like, comment, or subscribe. And in the near future, I'll be uploading more carrier gameplay, starting with the Hosho and Langley and working my way up. Until next time, this is Boom Shaka Boxer, signing out.